Welcome to the Igniting Change podcast. My name is Duncan Cook, founder of Three-Sided Cube. We know the power that technology has to have a positive impact on people's lives. But on this podcast, myself and my co-host are out to meet the people behind the technology, hear their stories and understand what drives them, and hopefully inspire others to join the mission and do some good in the world.
Hello, welcome to the Igniting Change podcast. I'm Sophie, I'm the COO at Three-Sided Cube, and I am joined today by Elham Fardad, who is the CEO and the founder of Migrant Leaders. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Sophie. It's my pleasure.
Lovely. So going to jump right in. So can you start by introducing yourself and telling us all about your fabulous organisation?
Thank you so much, Sophie. My name is Elham Fardad, and I'm the founder and CEO of the charity Migrant Leaders. Prior to Migrant Leaders, I actually came from a corporate background and never planned to launch a charity. I spent 23 years as a finance director in large corporates in GE, News Corp, and EY. I launched Migrant Leaders in 2017.
Wow. Okay. So what changed? What took you out of corporate and into charity?
As I said, I never planned to do anything but a corporate career, particularly in finance. Um, Really, I would say two things. And interestingly, each of these two things involved my mind and my heart, respectively.
Okay.
In my heart, really, I looked at myself. I came from a migrant background. We came from Iran when I was 13 years old, grew up in Birmingham. By the time I was 18, I had lost everything.
Oh, wow.
I ended up camping outside Birmingham City Council offices as an Iranian migrant at 18 to persuade the British government to count me as a home student so I could go to university, because that was my only chance to make anything of myself in this country and get myself and my family out of the situation we were in.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt responsible for my family and my little brother in particular. So fast forward 25 years. Um, um, I had spent 23 years in the large corporates, became a finance director, got married, have two wonderful children. But somehow, um, when I was at EY, even though I loved the colleagues I worked with, really loved the work that we did in EY, it was everything I had hoped for. Something was missing in my heart, and I really couldn't tell what it is. I now know that I was looking around myself and realized that I'm leaving a group of people behind who I will always be a part of, migrant families who were suffering, who really are digging deep, working hard to do well. The children of migrants to do well in education, but somehow that's not manifesting itself into their full professional potential. So I felt in my heart that I was leaving the people I'm from behind, and that felt bad in my heart. And then the head bit happened by chance because the
Okay.
Parker Review was published really around the same time in 2017. And it found itself in my inbox. And the Parker Review looked at the ethnic diversity of UK boardrooms. And
Oh.
that's really started something in me.
Okay, so it's a bit of a kismet moment of the two things. Had that sort of that feeling of wanting to do something and not leaving people behind, had that been kind of growing over time, or do you that was already there, and then the Parker
Yeah.
Review just was the final thing to make you act? So can you talk a bit more about Migrant Leaders, the charity, what you do, and all the amazing things that you're doing?
Thank you so much. Migrant Leaders really is a development program. It's a registered charity with the Charity Commission, registered in 2017. Um, and it's a development program that is made up of mentoring, work experiences, workshops, training, internships, and connections. And so everything that the first and second generation young migrants in the UK need in order to fulfill their professional potential, particularly designed for large corporate careers, because
Okay.
we want to do that and be the best at that. Really, training these young people, connecting them, mentoring them, supporting them, and giving them exposures and connections, strong relationships from the age of 16. While they're doing their A levels, they go on to university or degree apprenticeships or other routes. Really, we're doing everything in order to get them to land in large corporates, really capable.
Nice. And is that when you first started out, were there any kind of common things that you were seeing of, blockers that were in the way for those people, to be able
Yeah,
to achieve that?
yeah. The root causes of this are multiple and they're complex. But if we look at the Institute for Fiscal Studies Dayton Review, that study was very useful in 2021 because it really describes my problem statement. The Dayton Review said that migrant children in the UK have double the rate of university degrees compared to the white British majority. So, despite their relative socioeconomic disadvantage, migrant children have double the rate of university degrees. But this same group are still 6% behind in employment rates and even further behind in attaining professional jobs and managerial progression. So we cannot say that predominantly migrants come here to claim social security benefits. They come here to better their lives. Often they come here to escape prosecution and persecution and danger. So they come here, they are highly educated, the numbers back that up. Therefore, they do have aspirations, they do have ability, and they want to better their lives. So, what is stopping them turning that educational attainment to professional success in the labour market? The balancing number can only be connections. They're missing connections.
Yeah.
Connections that can sponsor them in terms of vouching for them. Connections
Mm.
that can mentor them. Connections that can give them decision support and insights early on in their careers, give direction and a vision for their career. And really, even prior to the Dayton Review back in 2017, the design of the high level program that I put together for Migrant Leaders was exactly that.
Nice. So you had a good instinct for it even before the data backed it up. You knew what was needed. That's great.
Yeah, and it wasn't just based on my own experience. I think this is,
Mm.
you said that I realized I left people behind. I think all along in the 23 years that I carried on pushing my own career forward, um, I think all along it was in the back of my head. This solution
Yeah,
was
of
cooking
course.
in my head. So I was
Yeah.
observing others' challenges as well.
Well, I mean, of course, because if you came here when you were 13 and then had that experience at 18, those are formative years. So that makes you who you are, and that's a real define. I can imagine, not wanting to put words in your mouth, but I can imagine that's a real defining piece. I think that's absolutely incredible that you've been able to take, like you say, not only your experience but the data and everything else, and turn it into real incredible action. I mean, so you've been the charity was set up in 2017, so you've had a good few years. Are there any cases that I mean, obviously not names or anything,
Oh,
but are there any sort of standout? I'm sure you have
there
a
are.
million.
There really are, because we now have almost 3,000 young people on our 5 year development program. We've got over 1,600 senior mentors from 95 FTSE 100 and leading firms. We have many large corporate partners with whom we're always collaborating on internships, workshops, work experiences, and mentoring. Um, there are several, as you said, Sophie, that stand out. So many of them. In fact, every day they email us and tell me about it, in terms of how the program has helped them. Some of those case studies are published in our quarterly impact report, so I can share their names with you. Many come to mind. Luke, for example, his family were from Nigeria. Luke himself was second generation migrant because he was born in London, grew up in a pretty tough part of London, and he was always good at numbers. So he went on to Leeds University to study accounting and finance. And he was, in fact, the first ever Migrant Leaders mentee. I was mentoring him even a couple of years before I launched Migrant Leaders. So he was the
Oh,
first
okay.
mentee to join the program as such. And
Lovely.
while he was at Leeds, I remember he was, applying to some local accountancy firms for internships. And as his mentor, I pushed him. I said, look, you're going to a Russell Group university. You're a really brilliant student. You should be applying to the big four only, and he applied to EY to join their summer internship. And I knew that's really important because by then I was in EY, and
Yeah.
I knew that those who get the summer internship, 80% of them get graduate job offers. So that was
Okay.
their way in
Yeah.
to the big four. We spent a weekend of going back and forth together, me and Luke, so that he refines his presentation for the internship application. And he did it brilliantly, as he always does. And he got the internship and he got the graduate job. And that was,
Amazing.
kind of several years have passed. Another one that comes to mind is James. He's an example of someone who is white British disadvantaged, because 14% of our Migrant Leaders mentees are actually white British disadvantaged. We don't want to leave them behind. I grew up with white British disadvantaged kids in state schools, and they are my friends as well. So James is an example of one who came from Derby. His family were always based there, generation after generation, and really they sent him to London to study in London with all their hopes and dreams and resources. He joined
No
Migrant
pressure.
Leaders. No pressure. I know. I really felt the pressure for him. Um, he joined Migrant Leaders, and I had a feeling. He said he likes business marketing, and I kind of had a feeling about what might suit him. I took him with me just to observe a meeting with the company Kantar, who were part of WPP at the time. FTSE 100 advertising agency, and Kantar are a marketing strategy consulting firm, global, massive. Long story short, James came out of that meeting saying, I would love to work for Kantar. They're my dream employer, in his words.
Wow.
Um, he graduated, got a job in Kantar. 3 years on, he's now a director
Wow.
at Kantar. I mean, his promotions have been even beyond my expectations, if I'm honest.
Oh,
Loads of
wow.
them, loads of them. My God,
Yeah.
Jamil Tuki in BP, um, you know, Israel at Warwick University doing biomedical science with the Smith and Nephew mentor. Just so many of them.
Yeah, of course. I bet I can imagine that you could talk about all of them for days. I
Yeah,
mean, it's incredible to hear. And is there, you know, is a big part of the mentoring piece, like you say, just encouraging to go for the thing that they're perfectly capable and able to do, and getting out, stepping beyond perhaps the limitations that have been put on them from society, or whatever it is that's making them think, oh, I'll just stay safe or whatever. I can imagine that's a
it
big part
is.
of it.
Some of the benefits of the charities program even came as a surprise to me, because as I stumbled across the successes of individual students on our program. For example, this girl, Adrienne, her comment in her case study for Migrant Leaders was that my Migrant Leaders mentor believed in me. And when I was applying for universities, she said, go for it. You can get into Oxford. And Adrienne said that she applied to Oxford with psychological safety.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that to have a huge effect. And she got in, and she got in.
Wow.
And
That's
I,
amazing.
I, I never thought that psychological safety would have such a profound effect on the outcomes, because I always looked at the tangible stuff and the tangible cause and effect relationships. But
Mm.
I realized, those things matter too. So the benefit of our program is even greater than I thought,
Yeah,
greater
so
than
it
I
goes.
had hoped.
That's amazing. So beyond the sort of very practical kind of, like you say, the connections and that side of it, that real sort of, like, it kind of like what you said at the beginning of the heart and the head side of things. It's the emotional side of it as well. That's amazing. And so so we obviously, you were the founder, and I guess leveraged a bit of your own network to kind of get that started with the mentors. And how has the journey been over the 7 years? How have you grown? What have there been any big changes that you've had to make and adapt to?
Yes, I mean, for a start, I was acutely aware 6 years ago that I know nothing about the charity work, or charity world, and the regulations and compliance side of charities. So I knew I have a lot to learn, and I was very lucky because as soon as I had done the high level design of the development program, I started consulting ex colleagues. And in particular, one of the managing directors that I was head of finance for, he introduced me to a mate who he grew up with in Yorkshire. This gentleman, his mate happened to be the CEO of the Mayor's Fund for London at the time.
Oh, sure.
So a seasoned charity leader, and he coached me in 3 or 4 sessions about
Wow.
what are some of the things I need to think about in setting up a robust charity. Compliance, youth development, social mobility, the level of support it needs, engaging with sponsors and corporates. So I learned very quickly, and I spent 2 or 3 weeks uh, reading the Charity Commission website. Every guidance they had, I read, and the
Wow.
Charity Times network. I read and read and read so that I can learn. Registered the charity then, and here we are now.
Amazing. Yeah, I get the impression that you would, if you had a lot to learn, you would do it. You seem a very diligent and determined woman, so I have no doubt that that was a short learning curve for you. And in terms of the growth, so how is the organization has continued to grow? How has that been for you? I guess starting as one person and then kind of that growth over the last few years.
What came as a surprise to me is that recruiting the mentors, the corporate mentors, was a lot faster than I expected because
Okay.
I initially told, as you alluded to, I initially told all my colleagues and ex colleagues about it, the people I had worked with the previous 20 years. Some of them volunteered as mentors, and they all connected me with their professional networks. So the first
Wow.
500 mentors I could recruit like that.
Yeah.
And then after that, I wrote to CEOs, CFOs, board members, really senior people, and told them all about the charities program objectives and work, and it really resonated with almost everybody. um, it was just a profound experience for me. So that's how the recruitment of the mentors happened, and the recruitment of the mentees, the young people, was a bit harder because I
Okay.
hadn't been at a school for about 25 years, so I didn't know any young
Fair.
people. Uh, so it was, with that, it really needed a push. It was almost like a car that is stalled and you have to push it and put a lot of effort in to begin with. So I
Mm.
really just, um, we first of all posted 400 of these booklets that I had prepared
Very
to
nice.
400 schools to tell
Okay.
the story of the charity. This was the initial high level design of the program and so on. So I
Ah,
posted these to 400 schools, and paid my children very little money. I think it was a fiver for just putting them in the envelope and putting stamps on them.
nice.
They were very young at the time,
Yeah, that's
so
fine.
they went with that. And I emailed the schools. I did everything in
Mm,
order to get the first few schools to work with us, and then after that it was word of mouth. And
really?
now it's a lot of it is by word of mouth, among the schools, um, education leaders, and
Mm.
among young people who TikTok about migrant leaders and all sorts of
Ah,
stuff.
TikTok, excellence, and a bit modern marketing there.
Yeah.
And in terms of your involvement, have you been able to sort of stay involved in the way that you wanted to? Has it been a straightforward-ish journey? I mean,
Um,
I guess you had the COVID side of things to deal with, and that would have been a thing to work through. Presumably that had an
yeah.
impact. Yeah.
Yeah. Y- I launched Migrant Leaders, and I was at the time still working as a senior manager in EY.
Mm.
and I had two young people, young children growing as well. So it reached a point where migrant leaders became very busy, and I realized I need to do this full time.
Yeah.
So I actually left EY in 2019 in order to do migrant leaders full time. That was a very difficult decision because I actually loved my work in EY and
Yeah.
quite liked my colleagues and everything. So
Yeah.
um, but I felt in my gut, really, it was an instinctive, I must admit, it was a leap of faith. It really was an instinctive decision. I took a chance.
Yeah.
And yes, I've been involved full time, more than full time, my heart, soul, sweat, and blood every day. Of course, with the help of a wonderful team as well. So all of us really put our everything into migrant leaders every day.
Yeah, I can imagine the team. I'm lucky enough to know another one of your team, but I'm sure the entire team are very bought in. Given the nature of the organisation, I think it would be difficult to not be. How many have you got within the team at the moment?
So now we've got myself and another four.
Wow,
So we're five FTEs, if you like,
that's
full
amazing.
time.
That's a lot considering if you went full time in 2019. That's some pretty quick growth. And I mean that must have been tough timeline wise. Obviously, COVID was, I think, around the sort of the 2019 2020. That whole thing is a bit of a blur now, really looking back. And did the I mean the COVID pandemic affected absolutely everyone. Did it have a particular impact for the migrant leaders and the people you're trying to help?
I mean, for a start, really a lot of what Migrant Leaders is about is the mentoring that can happen remotely, so that's okay.
Yeah,
But the corporate events, the internships, work experiences, workshops, a lot of it was on site. So we did start doing a lot of things during the lockdown online, doing webinars with the corporate partners, um, doing resilience training, mental toughness, education conference, Connect conference, which we used to hold in person. That went online. And then once the lockdown sort of eased, we were cautiously, with lots of checks and balances and testing, uh, we started having on-site conferences with our corporate partners again. And even now, we still give warnings about COVID and health and safety, so that our mentees and mentors and corporate partners are safeguarded.
yeah, of course. It's an ongoing. I mean, I can't quite believe it's been 4 years to be honest. But and in terms of so obviously the world's kind of opened up a bit more and things have changed. But how why can you talk a bit more about why migrant leaders we've talked a bit about its beginnings, but why right now, what the thing is that you're trying to do and why it's so important right now?
Mm. I think the need for migrant leaders existed all along. Really, for I would say for since the Windrush generation, there was a need for migrant leaders because migrants come to this country to better their lives, to contribute to their host country, to better the lives of their families, to achieve something. So there was a need for a migrant leaders all along. Um, but particularly now, Sophie, as you mentioned, it is additionally important because
Yeah.
there is a lot of political rhetoric.
Hmm.
The populist governments and media are trying to divide and conquer when it
Yeah.
comes to people. And we obviously are concerned about that because we think that the nation is better off united, that
Hmm.
actually migrants can contribute to economic growth, and they
Of
do.
course.
All the evidence shows that the net
Mm.
economic effect of migration is positive in the UK and all other
Yeah.
countries. Yes, there are short term costs. Yes, there is short term disruption in communities. We have to listen to that sentiment, that these are facts. But if we welcome those migrants who want to make a contribution to this country and better their lives, then actually evidence also shows that they have a positive impact on the economy in the long term. But that positive impact is partially eroded by the negative psychological impacts of
Mm.
migration. So the logical person would say, if we treat the migrants with respect and care and help them succeed in their host countries, that net positive effect on the economy and communities will be even greater. And that's what we're
Yeah.
trying to do.
Yeah, that is amazing, because I think the narrative, I mean, it feels like the narrative has always not been great, but it feels like there's been, quite a rise in that awful narrative, some of the newspapers whose names we won't even mention, but that narrative, and changing that, I think, is absolutely amazing, the work that you're doing to, like you say, the data, the numbers all back it up, that the narrative is just utter rubbish. But that must be a tough part of the mentorship, because you're dealing with that psychological element, for these migrants as well, for the
It is.
mentees.
It is. For me, the tough emotional aspect of it is that I used to be one of those young
Yeah.
migrants. And sometimes when the young people tell me about their problems, um, it suddenly takes me back.
Yeah.
And I have to constantly remind myself, you're the grown up now. You're here to help them. You're doing something about it. It's okay. They need a safe pair of hands, and they need someone to help them and safeguard them. You're now here as the grown up to help them. It's okay. It's okay. Your
Yeah.
trauma and your challenges are over. Now you need to stand with these young people and help them.
Yeah. And act as such a fabulous role model as well, to show what is possible. And I'm sure you had support, but it sounds like you were able to do that, on your own. And I think one of the wonderful things is that what you're doing means that, you've shown that you can do it on your own, but you're giving, these mentees the support, so they don't have to. So you've kind of
Yeah,
struggled through it, and then giving them the
yeah,
the support, they have a
yeah.
better opportunity.
But we live and learn, don't we, Sophie? All of
Yeah.
us, regardless of our backgrounds, we live and learn. Yes, when I was younger, I did do it on my own with some help and support from the people around, good teachers, good friends, British people. But yeah, predominantly on my own. And I don't want young people to be on their own like I felt I was. But we live and learn. I learned from that experience that it's not nice doing things on your own. You don't have to suffer so much. So with Migrant Leaders, I was lucky enough to welcome support, welcome help. And as a result,
Yeah.
I now have a wonderful team in Migrant Leaders. Fozia and the rest of the team are wonderful colleagues. And the mentors, the corporate partners, even the mentees, so many of them spread the word about Migrant Leaders so that other young people can be helped as well. I'm not doing this on my own. It's great.
No, that's really wonderful. And is the hope that, some of these mentees one day will become mentors? Is
Yeah,
that kind of the long-term journey? I think that would be just
exactly.
so wonderful. So yeah, we'll have to bring you back to hear when that happens. Milestone event. That's really amazing. And so, can you talk a bit around the tech side of, Migrant Leaders? So obviously, you know, the organization, the charity, is doing this amazing work. Can you talk a bit about how tech is involved?
Yes, of course, with three-sided cube, this is
Yes.
particularly relevant. When we, thought, you know, that, that obviously we always, when we think about the tech journey for Migrant Leaders, I always had a scale in mind. Because even though our program is bespoke and huddles around each young person's individual needs, but the bits that we can standardize and automate, we must. Because ironically, standardization and automation creates capacity in operations so that you can then give bespoke support to each mentee when needed.
Yes.
Ironically. So it's both a standardized and bespoke as a program. And that's what technology enables. So it's really important stuff. I'm not one of those people who wants technology for the sake of technology. Some people, when they try and pitch to you about the latest idea they have for a tech platform, and you ask them two or three key questions about, okay, so what does the platform exactly do? They often answer you in wishy-washy answers that don't get anywhere. You sort of try and help them explain themselves. So you say to them, okay, who's your customer? It's very broad, the answers. What's the customer problem you're trying to solve? And why does this problem need a tech solution?
Mm.
You know? So I don't believe in technology for the sake of technology. Technology is just another tool to solve customer problems,
Yes.
right? It's gotta all start with what problem am I trying to solve for the customer or beneficiaries or the stakeholders. And that's how it all started with the Migrant Leaders mobile app.
There
So
you go.
we had already implemented Salesforce CRM at Migrant Leaders. That helped us standardize and streamline some of our operational processes. But I could see that we need to automate certain things. For example, we were making manual allocations of mentors to mentees one to one, and then confirming mentors and mentees by email. This was not sustainable. And actually, the decision criteria for allocating a mentor to a mentee was pretty standard. That could be automated through an app. So that's
Mm.
why I started the procurement of the right tech partner, which luckily ended with Three-Sided Cube. And we
Fabulous.
have obviously worked together for a year and
Mhm.
successfully launched the Migrant Leaders mobile app. And that was really the reason for that, to really solve a customer problem.
Yeah, I love what you said about the fact that the tech is sort of there to give more space for the personal, the bespoke, to allow that sort of balance. And I know you've managed to keep that balance, so you've kept personal interviews as part of the process,
That's
and
right, yeah.
as part of the program. So, and I think that's really wonderful that that is something that you have held on to. Can you talk a bit about why? I mean, I can guess, but I'd love to hear it from you about why that's so important.
We realized, we talk to mentees every day, all the
Mm.
time. I visit schools, colleges, me and my team talk to mentees every day, all the time. So we have a good feel for what elements of our program they find profound and really helpful. And they do like the personal touch.
Mm.
So so yes, when a young person applies to our program on our website, we shortlist them and then interview every single young person. We give them
Wow.
feedback on their interview technique and get them prepared for the interview. We train them through our pre-mentoring program so that they can get the best out of their mentoring relationship. And then when they get allocated one or more mentors through our Migrant Leaders app, um, if they have additional support that they need, as well as meeting them all the time in our corporate events and internships and work experiences. So we're meeting the mentees all the time, face to
Mm.
face, on our webinars, on our corporate events and internships. So there's a big personal element to the program. And as a result, they feel that they're not just part of a tech platform. The tech
Yeah.
platform is just one of the tools. That's
Yeah.
it. But it's a human program.
Yeah, so it's just one part of the whole, like you say, of the
Mhm.
program. And so you've got 1,600, I think you said earlier, over 1,600 mentees. So that's a lot of
Mentors.
interview mentors.
Mentors,
Sorry,
yeah,
three
1,600 mentors and
mentors,
almost
3,000.
3,000 mentees now.
So it's even more interviews than I was going to say. So that's
Yeah,
a lot of interviews in the last 7 or so years. And when you're talking to them, I guess it must be such a that initial interview of interviewing them for migrant to be part of Migrant Leaders. That's a real insight, an early insight of how are they going to interview in these corporate roles and everything. So that must be invaluable kind of insight that you just couldn't replace with tech.
yeah. We talked
Yeah.
about it. Me and Fawzia, we really debated this between
Mm.
us whether we should continue to interview every single young candidate who applies to Migrant Leaders, and both of us agreed we've got to continue to do that because um, even though we accept around 97, 98% of the applicants on Migrant Leaders, we accept them. So it's not about kind of getting them to fail their interview and not
No.
accepting them on the program. But the whole interview is our way of getting to know each individual young
Yeah.
person and their unique needs. And also, it's a very important part of their learning. For most of them, that interview is their first ever interview.
Yeah. So it's a big step, and
Mm,
it's such an important thing. And I think the work that you're doing through Migrant Leaders is genuinely so life-changing that I think it's so amazing that their first touch point with the charity is with you and is a personalized thing, because it would be easy to automate and to put the tech in place for it, but I think, like you said earlier, it's getting the balance, doing the right thing, because the thing you want to automate, tech for tech's sake, is pointless, and it's really just there to get rid of the things that you can standardize and you don't want to be doing, and that making space for something as important as that first ever interview
And
is
we'll
just so
always do
wonderful.
that.
Yeah,
Regardless of our scale, we will always do that.
yeah,
We're seasoned operational people. We know which bits to automate and which bits to keep personal and on site with our corporate partners. So we will always keep it that way and support each individual mentee.
I think it's absolutely amazing. And well, as you grow, I think it'll be just so wonderful to see that. And like we said earlier, that sort of journey from mentee to mentor, I think could be absolutely fascinating, and how that will kind of evolve. So, and sort of on that theme, so what is next? What is the future for Migrant Leaders? What are you working towards?
Well, at the moment, it's really scaling up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're working with more and more corporate partners. The
Yeah.
latest addition to our corporate partners was a chemicals company called Infinium, and we've
Okay.
just delivered a 3-day internship um, for chemical engineering, chemistry, and data sciences university students.
Wow.
And it was wonderful. You'll see the video that we're about to publish.
Amazing.
And that was a wonderful experience for me as well, to hear from these chemistry and chemical engineering students at university telling me that actually they had no idea how they would use their degree in the real world.
Oh wow.
That actually chemical engineering is a very wide subject,
Yeah.
and that this internship with Infinium helped them narrow it down, and they actually
Oh,
met chemical engineers and chemistry PhDs at Infinium, and they could really plan their careers as a result of the internship that we delivered. And of course, many of the Infinium people will be joining as mentors as well. And through the Migrant
yeah.
Leaders mobile app, as developed by Three Sided Cube, they will get connected to more mentees at Migrant Leaders.
Amazing. And so that's the sort of the next kind of step in terms of a new internship. So that's absolutely wonderful. And scaling, so just kind of staying true to the mission as you grow. That's going to be a task, I guess. I mean, the stuff that you're saying about continuing to keep interviewing, I think that it's obvious that it's so purpose driven from you and that you believe in it so much. So I think that will continue to kind of shine through. But I guess, are there any kind of big, other than scaling, any other sort of big things on the horizon that you're kind of excited about or nervous about that you want to
Yeah,
share?
really good question, Sophie. I think, there, in terms of a scale, there will come a natural point where we can say, yes, we've trained 7, 8, 10,000 young people and sent them hitting the ground running in corporates, and that these 10,000 young people will make a systemic change to the corporate landscape, because there are 10,000 migrant leaders. And they will contribute to this country. They'll fulfill their potential. They'll pay their taxes. They'll help. They'll help narrow down the north-south divide. There are so many challenges in the UK and every country, really, that 10,000 migrant leaders can help solve. After that, I'd like to work with the corporate partners on helping those um, managers who are already in the corporates but are hitting a ceiling because of their migrant background. They're hitting a concrete ceiling. They are not going further up into senior management roles or board positions. That's, for me, is where I'd like to expand my portfolio of work and really work with those corporate partners to help those um, those migrant talents, and therefore try and help make a difference to the corporate boardroom dynamics.
Amazing. Yeah, because I guess there's a whole generation of people who would have just sort of missed that mark before Migrant Leaders was created. So they're kind of already on the corporate ladder, but like you say, kind of stuck. So that will be another whole generation of people that you can help to
Yeah,
get
because
there.
every time I've recruited mentors, some of them are migrants, and the migrant mentors always said, I wish Migrant Leaders was around when I was young.
Yeah,
And
but
they also say, we're really happy that we can help now these young people, but what about me? These migrant
yeah,
executives always
fair.
said, what about me now? What can you do
Yeah,
to help me get to top management? And that's what started the thought for me. So I'm
okay.
currently working on that program.
Amazing. So a whole new program. So we'll have
Yeah,
to
it's going to be called Migrant Leaders Global. And
lovely.
I'll
Love
be
that.
working with our corporate partners to deliver that program of executive coaching, executive education, mentoring, and allyship to really boost their promotion chances.
Amazing. Well, that sounds absolutely incredible. And thank you so much for talking to me today. It's just,
Thank you.
obviously we are lucky enough to work with you. So I know more or less all of this, but just hearing it firsthand from you and your experience is just so wonderful. So I really appreciate you coming on. And I think this will be a fabulous listen for anyone.
Thank you.
And yeah, just a big thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Thanks to you, Joe, and the rest of, Ben, yourself, Joe, and the rest of the Three-Sided Cube team for continuing to work with us. It really continues to be a pleasure working with you and the Three-Sided Cube team.